So today I'm going to be showing you how to clean a ceramic bearing. So these bearings aren't completely ceramic balls. They are titanium races and they have one ceramic ball and the rest are stainless steel. These are made by Rush, and the concept behind these is that the one ceramic ball is harder than the rest of the steel balls and the titanium cage, and it will actually repolish the surface. Now I believe they're only titanium coated, so theoretically the surface the balls are actually riding on are steel. So that being said, they can rust, so you need to periodically clean them and keep them well lubricated to keep them going. In order to clean your bearings, you're going to need a few things. First off, you're going to need your bearings, and I like to do my bearing spacers as well. Just makes me feel extra safe that I got all the grit out and make sure everything's good and clean. Along with that, you see here I have a towel. Now you can either use paper towels, a towel, an old sock, anything that will work, as long as it's absorbent and you don't want to ruin anything because it's going to get dirty. So anything old, that'll work. Next is a wide mouth bottle the bearings will fit into. Make sure it's like plastic of some sort or metal. Doesn't really matter what it is, as long as it can seal. Next, you'll see I have a funnel here. That's just to pour out the bearings and the grit into when you're done. You're going to want to put a paper towel or a coffee filter inside of here to catch the bearings and the spacers from going into your waste bottle. That leads me to a bottle for your waste rubbing alcohol. Here you can see there's some in here already. That's just from past cleanings that I've done on these bearings. And finally, you're going to need some actual rubbing alcohol. The higher percentage, the better. It's just a more pure alcohol. So 91% usually works pretty good. If you can get it higher, I would. So that's all you're going to need for just the basic bearing cleaning. What I like to do is I like to go a step further sometimes, especially after I've been riding in like a sandy environment, is I'll take a little cup like this. This is just the top off of a spray paint type of can. And I'll take a soft bristled, toothbrush, and then I'll use that after I rinse the bearings out. If I feel there's one with a little bit of grit left, I'll just swirl it around with the bearing in the cup, and that will get all the grit out. Anytime you're working with chemicals, you should probably use protection, such as safety glasses. I'm just going to use a rubber glove. I've done this before, so just rubber glove to keep the alcohol off your hand when you're scrubbing the bearings with a toothbrush. Last but not least, I forgot to mention earlier, is you're going to need some type of either razor blade or needle just to get the little rubber shields off the bearings. So you're going to be really careful when you do that. Alright, so now we're going to start disassembling the bearings, and then we're going to clean them. Alright, so to start off, you're going to want to take your wide mouth bottle, take off the lid, and put in your bearing spacers. That'll just keep you from losing those. Next, you want to take your rubbing alcohol, make sure it's open, and then just pour some into here. You don't need to fill it all the way. I would usually just put about 1 inch in it, just enough to cover the bearings. You can always go back and add more in, but once you contaminate it, you don't want to put it back in your clean bottle, so it's always better to start out with a less amount. Now this is where it can get kind of tedious and dangerous. So what you're going to want to do is take your razor blade and the bearing and just insert it on the inner part of the lip right here, you can see. And then if you just gently pry down, it will lift the shield. And then once you get it up, it might take you a few little tries here, you can pull it right off. Alright, and then you want to do that to both sides. You can hear the grit in there. You should make sure not to damage it though, because if you damage these seals, it will drastically decrease the life of your bearing. Just like that. So now you should have 2 seals and your bearing. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these, and you can do that too. Alright, so now that I've got all the shields off the actual bearings, you should have 8 bearings and 16 shields. So what I like to do is I like to take the shields, and you can see there's usually some grit on them. And I'll just take them and I'll actually wipe off that grit before I place them into the bottle. And the reason for this is you just want to get all the grit off that you can before you put it into the bath, because the less grit that goes in is the less grit that's going to end up remaining in the bearings. So the more you can get out now, the better off you'll be in the end. So I'm going to do this and then I'll be back. So after you've gotten all of your shields cleaned off, I should say, I guess, you want to take your bearings and put your bearings into your rubbing alcohol. Just put them in there one by one. Alright, and then after you do that, you can just go ahead and put the lid on there. And then you're going to shake it. So I'm going to go shake this for about 5 minutes, let it sit for a little bit, and I'll come back. Alright, so I've shaken my bearings, and they're sitting in the alcohol for about 5 minutes now. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to actually pour them into the waste bottle. So the way I do this is I take my old container of rubbing alcohol, and I put a funnel on top of it, just wedge it in there good so it's not going to fall out. And then you want to take a coffee filter, which I just had. Here it is. And you just take that and poke it down in there. And then the next step in this is you're going to actually want to take your wide mouth bottle with the bearings in it and just slowly at first start to pour the liquid in until it starts to settle, and then you can pour it in, but you want to be careful not to let it overflow. And then you just pour your bearings in, and a lot of the grit should remain in the bottle. You can see some on the bottom there. So that's going to go ahead and let the bearings dry a little bit. So while it's doing that, I'll set those aside and I'll lay out my cloth. Now when you lay out the cloth, you don't want to lay it out on the same side as you used before because it'll be full of grit. Just going to lay it flat. Get rid of your old bottle. You're done with that. Alright, and then I'll come back once these are dry. Alright, so now that my bearings have dried, for the most part, all the liquids come out, I'm just going to take each one, spin it. You can hear some grit in there. If I still hear a lot of grit, I'm going to set it in this container over here. So there's still some grit in that one. You can kind of hear the grit there maybe. This one's not too bad. That one's still going to get some extra work. This one's not too bad. That one's probably fine. This one's got grit in it. Grit. 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 So basically all my bearings still have a little bit of grit in them. So some people will just let it go like that, but I don't like to. So we're going to go to those in the next step. But before that, you want to take all your little rubber shields and lay them out metal side down. Just like that. Don't have to be anything special. Just so they're not sitting in the wet coffee filter. So they start to dry. Because when you want to put your bearings back together, you don't want them to be wet at all. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the next step of this and I'll be back. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my old rubbing alcohol. Now this has been filtered so there shouldn't be any grit in there. And just put a little bit in here. Now I'm just going to take my glove, put that on. I don't know how to put gloves on apparently. And then take my brush, just get it wet with alcohol, and take each bearing and just brush it a little bit. Give it a little spin, a little more brush, until it sounds debris free. I'm just going to do that to every bearing. And this is just a little extra step that gets your bearings extra clean and keeps them going longer. So I'll be back when I'm done with this. So after you've cleaned all your bearings thoroughly, now you need to let them dry. So I normally just let them sit. Maybe give them a few little taps here and there. Just keep them moving because they're going to saturate whatever they're sitting on. And then after about 5 minutes or so, I'll give them a flip. And a really cool property with alcohol is it evaporates really fast. So if you get a little bit of air moving on these guys, they'll be dry in no time. So when they're dry, I'll be back. So here I have two different types of oil. This is a skate specific oil, so it's made for skateboard bearings, Bones Speed Cream, and that works pretty good. But what I found I really like is fishing reel oil. This here is called South Bend Super Reel Oil, and it's half-ounce multi-purpose lubricant. So I like this a lot because it's actually got a corrosion protectant in it, and it's a little bit thicker than the speed cream, so I think it lasts a little longer without sacrificing any roll speed. So the key with lubricating your skate bearings is to not over lubricate them. So you want to take just a drop, and you want to put it right on one of the balls, each bearing, just like that. And these aren't huge drops, it's just a light squeeze on what it puts out. Do that to all of them. And then after you've done that, you're done with the actual lube, so you can set that to the side. And you just want to take your bearing and just slowly, well, not slowly I guess, just give it a good spin and work that lube into there. Just make sure it goes all throughout the bearing. And then after you've done all of them, I like to go back through and just give them one more minute drop, just the tiniest little drop, just to make sure they're all evenly coated. Just a little drop in each one. Doesn't matter what position you put it in because you just spun the oil evenly. So you just go ahead and do that to all of them. And then you want to spin them again, and then you can go ahead and put your shields on. So I'm going to go ahead and spin all these guys again, and you can just hear how much smoother that sounds. They sound great. So I'm going to go ahead and spin all those, and I'll be back. Alright, so now that you're done lubricating your bearing, you can go ahead and take your shields and gently take it, set it down, and then just work your way around it until it pops. You want to do this on both sides of all the bearings. Just like that. Be very careful not to damage the shields during this process, because if you do, then all kinds of dirt and debris will be able to get in the bearing and it'll ruin it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and then I'll be back. Alright, so now that we're done lubricating and reapplying our shields, we are done the cleaning and lubricating process. Now you're just going to go ahead and reinstall the bearings into your board and go skate. Thanks for watching our videos. Have a great day.